Hi, welcome to Board Gems. In this video, I'll be comparing the 2002 and 2020 editions of the Carcassonne spin-off, Hunters and Gatherers. Here they are. On the left is the 2002 edition with art from Johann Ruttinger, and on the right, the 2020 edition with art from Marcel Grober. You can see the art styles are quite different, with the left being a little bit more, I suppose, children's book style of art, but you'd also notice the designer listing. So in the original, the designer was listed as Klaus-Jürgen Wrede, who was, of course, the designer of the original Carcassonne. The work done by the developer, Bernd Brunhofer, to make this spin-off of Carcassonne was not recognized at the time. He's a principal of Hans im Glück, and he probably didn't want to take any credit from anyone else. But he put a lot of work into this game, and so it's nice to see his name listed prominently. The backs of the box, not really much to say about it. Of course, the English editions were from different companies, Rio Grande in the original and Z-Man in the new. Very similar inserts, simple cardboard insert, very colorful in the new edition, and great branding. The scoreboards, you can see, again, a glimpse of the different art styles, of which the newer edition on the right is much more saturated and colorful than the original. You'll also notice that on the bottom it shows a little player aid, I suppose, a little guide in showing the scoring for the different animals. And that's one difference in the game, because in the original, the mammoths, the aurochs, and the deer were all worth 2 points. And now they vary, 3, 2, and 1 respectively. Here we see on the top the backs of the tiles, of the special tiles. They're called something different now. I think they were just called bonus tiles in the original, but now they're called Menhir tiles. Menhir. Of course, that's the German way. The Menhir tiles. You see the 100 point tiles, and in the foreground there is the starting tile. Instead of a mammoth, it's now an aurochs, which, as I mentioned earlier, in the new edition has a different point value than the mammoth. You'll see in the bottom right of the original starting tile is showed a little yellow circle. It's supposed to be a gold nugget. I'm not sure if prehistoric people cared so much about gold. Not sure. Worth researching. They replaced those with these stone columns. Let's look at the playing pieces. So previously they were almost standard Carcassonne meeples, but with one hand kind of raised, like, hey, how's it going? But now these prehistoric people have clubs? Maybe walking sticks, I'm not sure. A bit larger, easier to pick up. They also look a little bit beefier. I don't know, if you look at the legs and arms, they look a bit thicker. maybe they're more muscular, having to hunt and everything. Now you'll notice the huts are much different sizes. But there's only 2 in the original. They changed the rules, so now you have 3 huts in the new edition. So I wonder, maybe it's the same amount of wood spread out over 3 versus 2 huts? I'm not sure. And they changed black to purple as a player color. Now some might see this as a downgrade. These game pieces are placed to cover deer on the tiles to show when they will no longer score. They were wooden in the original and now they're cardboard. Some might think that's a little bit of a downgrade, but there were only 10 in the original. There are over 20 in the new. It doesn't really bother me. The green wooden pieces were quite thick, and they stood out more than they kind of really needed to. I actually kind of prefer the flat cardboard in this case. I'm not going to show you all the tiles. We'll just show you some potential differences, particularly in the art style. Most of the tiles are equivalent. They're pretty much exactly the same. There are a couple of noticeable differences. These 3 tiles in the foreground are differences in some of the gold nugget / menhir tiles. One thing that I never really liked in the original is that the trees were always kind of pointy, and they always pointed in a single direction on the tile. But of course you can rotate the tiles, which makes the forest look a little bit odd. I like the new trees much better because not only are they not all pointy, they sometimes go in different directions, and because they're more rounded, it just looks a little more natural when they're oriented all sorts of different directions. Here on these water tiles, you can really see the color difference. The new version is super saturated, just really deep blues and a much deeper green for the forest. Also, the animal pictures are a little bit more dynamic in the new edition, as opposed to kind of what looks like almost like posed pictures of the animals in the original. So, as I said early on, all the animals were worth the same number of points in the original version, 2 points. They changed that in the new, so that mammoths are worth more than aurochs, which are worth more than deer, 3, 2, and 1. So some of the mammoth have actually become aurochs now. They've been downgraded a bit. But I apologize, I neglected to take pictures of the actual bonus tiles / menhir tiles. So what I'm going to show you instead is the backs of the rule books, which show a little player guide showing the different possible bonus cards, they say. I don't like cards, they're tiles, they're not cards. Anyway, you can see there's a much bigger variety in the new edition. Lots of different stuff happening, so a lot of variety. Most of the tiles that were in the original are still present, so the fire, which chases away the tigers. There's a sort of a fairy ring, a mushroom ring in the forests. But one tile is missing, and that's the shrine tile. I remember seeing some buzz that some people considered that overpowered. I mean, really it's only overpowered if you have one giant field. At any rate, it's removed in this edition, but I don't think you'll miss it. A lot of fun replacements provided. The originals rulebook, fairly standard for a Rio Grande Games rulebook. I'm not sure if that's just a direct translation from the German Hans im Glück, but it's kind of a wall of text. I mean, there are lots of diagrams, but the rulebook doesn't really hold your hand, certainly. Very standard rulebook from the age that it came from. I would love to hear other people's opinions about the new rulebook because it's longer, and it's because they try to break it down a little bit more in more detail, but they repeat a lot of information. So when they're describing the forests and the grasslands, let's pause it here, they repeat the whole turn order. You place the tile, you place the meeple, you score the thing. And it repeats it like 3 times or 4 times for the different types of things that you're doing. And it does make the rule book longer, which can make the rules seem more complicated. Maybe I'm off base. Maybe they've done their research and this is better. It's just weird to me as a longtime gamer. Thanks for watching. Remember, older games like Carcassonne, Hunters and Gatherers don't stop being good just because newer games come out. Next time, I hope to cover Big Shot. Hope you'll join me then. Take care until then.